Huffington Post is reporting on an interesting story coming out of Israel. Apparently, Benjamin Netanyahu has been under some pressure from President Obama to prove his commitment to a two-state solution. So Netanyahu responded to this pressure by appointing a guy named Silvan Shalom to oversee peace talks. Now, there's only one problem with that. Quote, Shalom has made comments in direct opposition to Palestinian statehood. In 2012, while serving as a member of the Knesset in the Likud party, Shalom told party activists, "We are all against a Palestinian state. There is no question about it."
Okay, now let's pause to understand that that's the guy that was just put in charge of doing peace talks with the Palestinians about getting a Palestinian state. Now, gee, I wonder what message Netanyahu's trying to deliver. I can't quite figure it out. Now, of course, famously during the elections, Netanyahu said, yeah, no, we don't believe in a Palestinian state. We're not going to do it. I'm paraphrasing there, but in essence. And then the Obama administration, the U.S. government, was angry about that. Right after the elections, Netanyahu came out and said, I was kidding. Yeah, of course, sure, two-state solution. Why not? Right? And then he puts a guy in charge of the peace talks who says that, no, there's no question about it. We're against the Palestinian state. Now, how are you going to have peace talks with that guy?
Yeah, at this point, in all seriousness, Benjamin Netanyahu is trolling President Obama. That's what he's doing. He's essentially saying, fuck you. They don't like each other right now, and this is a move where he's spitting in his eye. And he's saying, I'm totally against you now, and I'm also just never going to give the Palestinians a state. I'm not even, see, that's the thing. He's not even interested in negotiating for a state. Anybody who says otherwise hasn't been following this closely. There was a great report out, all the times that Benjamin Netanyahu was for and against a Palestinian state. The dude has flip-flopped more than Mitt Romney on that one issue.
Yeah. And so you judge a man by his actions, not by his words, especially if he's a politician, right? So if you were unsure before which way Netanyahu was going to go, you want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Some people have these fantasies about, no, it takes a super right-winger who's totally pro-war and has started many wars to make peace, right? Like, ooh, it's counterintuitive. No, yeah, it's counterintuitive for a reason, because he's not interested in peace. That's why he started the wars, right? And so, in this case, look, you can argue about who started the wars, and that argument never ends, right? But in this case, he has put a guy in charge of the peace talks who's not interested in peace, who's not interested in a Palestinian state. So those actions are far, far more important. Of course, he's not the only person in this right-wing government. Then you have other radicals like Naftali Bennett, who's become the education minister, God help the kids of Israel, and Ayelet Shaked as the justice minister, God help justice in Israel. So he's going to get in there. It's the Holy Land, right? We're going to need him to step in at some point.
Now, I want to give you Shalom's quote because I think that's also very telling. And keep in mind what I said before about trolling as I read you this quote here. He said, "The appointment indicates the desire of the Prime Minister in Israel to have negotiations with the Palestinians, in contrast to the accusations that Israel refuses peace, and in contrast to the Palestinian claims that they cannot avoid unilateral actions in order to advance the establishment of a Palestinian state." So it's not just Netanyahu who's trolling, now it's Shalom who's trolling also. And they're saying, yeah, forget about what I said, it's irrelevant what I said, that is what I believe, but now I'm going to pretend like, yeah, I'm the peace guy. And watch what I do. Absolutely nothing.
So I think he added LOL at the end of that statement. So this is basically Netanyahu saying to Obama and to the rest of the world, but specifically to the Obama administration, oh, so you wanted to play games with me, right? You didn't like what I said during the campaign, and you criticized me after the election. Well, okay, well then now you know where I'm coming from, okay? Fine, you were right. We're not going to have two states. So that was your big, grand goal, and that was going to be your legacy. Like every American president wants their legacy to be peace in the Middle East, and you're going to do a two-state solution. No, you're not. As long as I'm in charge, you're never going to get a two-state solution. I put a guy in charge whose whole point is to make sure we never get a two-state solution. So at least now we have clarity.
And I honestly, that's the only way to anything that comes even close to peace. Like, there's no other way you can come close to it. And look, even if you get a two-state solution, I do think there's still going to be extremists on both sides who say, I'm pissed off because I want everything.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Of course.
So, but my idea is, just fucking dismiss those guys. Say, all right,
Why didn't I think of
Hamas,
that?
go sit in the corner, Hamas, and shut up. We don't care about what you have to say. Likud, same thing, and the further right-wing party, same thing. We're not interested in what you have to say. And honestly, let's face it, the U.S. can step up and say, hey, we're in control here. Let's not kid ourselves. We have the biggest military in the world, and here's the 1967 borders. Here's a two-state solution, and I don't want to hear a peep out of either one of you. And here's a giant fucking wall in the middle, because sometimes good fences make for good neighbors.
Yeah. So I agree and disagree. So first of all, we can't dismiss Likud and Hamas because they actually both won elections. So I might disagree with Likud's strategies. I certainly disagree with Hamas. But I don't get to decide who the Palestinians pick as their leaders. I also don't get to decide who the Israelis pick as their leaders. So it is what it is. Now, but there is something we can do as Americans. We can say, Netanyahu administration, you don't agree with a two-state solution? No
Zero
problem.
funding.
Okay, there's two aspects of that. One, okay, that's it. We're done. No funding. Oh, and by the way, if any funding is going to Hamas or anything along those lines, it's not. But if it was, we cut that too.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So, for example, if the Fatah government in the West Bank was helping Hamas in some way, you want to cut their funding? Great. Why are we funding people we don't agree with?
It makes
right?
no sense.
It doesn't matter if they're Palestinians or Israelis. The second part of it is you say, look, if the Palestinians are going to go for a state through a diplomatic solution, and we've been telling them the violence is not the answer for decades, because that's true, it's not the answer, it's both immoral and counterproductive. Well, and they're now going and trying a diplomatic solution in the United Nations, just like Israel did. Now people nitpick and go, well, no, Israel didn't wasn't exactly like, no, they went to the United Nations, and the United Nations said, yes, let there be Israel, right? And so the Palestinians are asking for the same exact thing. We could just back it. All we have to do is
That's right.
lift our veto.
Yep.
We don't have to support it. We don't have to co-sponsor it. When it comes up, we just don't veto it. Problem solved.
And what's it going to take for Obama to just do that? Just do it. That's all you have to do.
Look, he's saying that he's now considering it after getting poked in the eye 700 times by Netanyahu.
I don't believe it for a second.
Yeah, I mean, it would be amazing. And
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm dead wrong. But from every action I've seen from every president on the issue of Israel, they might talk tough, kind of, maybe every once in a while, but they're never going to say, yeah, take a hike.